It just simply isn't. And yet that's what hijackals do. Now, hijackals is my term for all the people with patterns, traits, and cycles of those people who are narcissistic, passive aggressive, antisocial, histrionic, borderline. All of those traits will come up. It doesn't matter about a diagnosis, of course. That's not going to help, and the person's not likely going to go anyway. And it's highly likely that you're not a psychological professional, a mental health professional, so don't bother with diagnoses. Just simply know that those behaviors that these people are engaging in have to be seen. That's why I have a program, a self-study program with videos and self-reflective questions and things. It's called Seeing the Cycles. And you can find that on my website at forrelationshiphelp.com, F-O-R, relationship, H-E-L-P.com. Look for the cycles will make everything your fault because they take no responsibility and have no accountability for anything negative. Yes, they'll be happy to take all the credit for something, but that's entirely different, right? So today, some practical insights into why these difficult people make everything your fault and what to do about it. With the relentlessly difficult people that I call hijackals. There's a reason. Hijackals cannot possibly entertain the idea of being wrong or even taken as mistaken. It's not that they don't mess up. It's that they cannot allow themselves to be less than perfect and right. Their egos are fragile, very fragile. Yes, I know that seems hard to believe because they're so certain, so assertive, and often so aggressive. And yet, things that have happened to them in their young lives have made them feel so easily shattered, even with their offensive and defensive shells intact. I know, it's hard to believe, but that's a topic for another time. That doesn't mean that just because you understand they have been through difficulties in their life that you have to accept these outrageous behaviors. No, you don't. We can have compassion for somebody having a difficult time without condoning or enabling their continuing poor behavior choices. So hijackals have been damaged in ways that cause them to be hypervigilant. They are hypervigilant. They're always on the lookout for being hurt, for being blamed, for being wrong. And they are not going to be caught off guard, not going to be surprised or blamed or wrong. To keep their sense of rightness in their internal worlds, that simply can't happen. They can't be surprised or caught off guard or blamed or wrong. Therefore, what? You must be the one at fault. It's kind of like they say, obviously, there are only two of us here and there's nothing wrong with me, so it must be you, right? It's faulty logic, crooked thinking, but they still do it. And it's frustrating and it's infuriating. And yes, it's inaccurate. And that's where the crazy making and the unfairness begins. And there's no end to it. You've noticed that, I'm sure, if you've been around one. Whether that's your parent or a partner or an ex or someone unreasonable in your family or at work. Because that crazy making and the unfairness that goes with it is just ongoing. Blame becomes a preoccupation for hijackals. Their immediate response to it is to reject it and deflect it. That means, of course, boomerang of blame, it's coming back your way. Now let's take a little example. Even something as factual and innocuous as you said you would pick the kids up from mom's by 5 o'clock. Simple, factual, but it's met with, it's not my fault. If it was so important for you that that happened on time, you were perfectly capable of picking them up by rearranging your schedule. Right? You've heard that. Crazy making, mind blowing. Are you kidding? That's how you feel, right? So let's just look at the lack of logic and the crooked thinking. You say, simply, stating a fact. You said you would pick the kids up from mom's by 5. And what does the hijackal say? It's not my fault. If it was so important for you that for that to happen on time, you were perfectly capable of picking them up by rearranging your schedule. Crazy. Nothing lands on them. They won't allow it. They simply make sure that nothing lands on them. Allowing even the slightest blame to land on them is unthinkable. It's almost like they sense there's a mortal emotional danger in it. There's reasons for all this, but as I said, another podcast episode. This sense of mortal emotional danger, their fears dominate them. And they cause that hypervigilance that I was talking about. Things have happened to them to make them that way. Not your fault. Didn't happen by you. Happened when they were young. But you are the one that is being blamed. You are the one that is getting the result of this. And you really have to stand up on your back legs and say, no, this is not going to happen. And you don't do that by arguing with them. You do that by having strong boundaries. Now, I have got lots of podcasts about boundaries and lots of YouTube videos around it. So remember, just go to my website, forrelationshiphelp.com.
Onto others. And people who don't have narcissistic personality traits, they are able to acknowledge a wrongdoing, admit fault, and make changes. To acknowledge fault and accept blame brings a sense of calming and feels good because you have righted a wrong you felt in yourself. To the person with narcissistic personality traits, to accept responsibility doesn't feel good or provide resolution. It brings up more hurt and negative feelings. As a result, the better option for the narcissist is to project the blame. The fastest way out of the negative feelings they're experiencing is to put the blame on someone else. If the narcissist finds themselves in a position where they can't project the blame onto someone else, they feel vulnerable. Vulnerability is an uncomfortable feeling for them that can lead to narcissistic injury and then narcissistic rage. The narcissistic injury destroys their sense of superiority and grandiosity as their self-esteem and self-worth is being threatened. Their response is rage. The rage can be through aggressive behaviors such as yelling or passive-aggressive behaviors that include silent treatment or stonewalling. The intended goal is to shut down all communication and restore a sense of internal stability in themselves. They want to turn the focus away from them so that there's no requirement to take blame, even in those situations where escaping blame is difficult. In addition to narcissistic rage, the narcissist might also use more pervasive blame-shifting techniques such as gaslighting. Through gaslighting, the narcissist's intended goal is to make you appear to be the crazy one and to have you believe that you are in fact crazy. Gaslighting is a form of control and manipulation where the narcissist designs your reality around what they want you to believe. When the narcissist can gain the upper hand with gaslighting, then it leaves their partner always questioning their own reality, which makes it easier for the narcissist to place blame on them when situations come up. When a narcissist blame shifts, they don't have to take accountability. However, by not taking accountability for things that are actually their fault, there is no incentive to change. The narcissist will continue to engage in the same unhealthy behaviors, which prolongs this pattern.
Who did the video first about family members?
Relationship, but also to the expectation of change in the narcissist. Narcissists' unstable sense of self doesn't allow them to work on themselves, and the lack of empathy prevents them from seeing how their actions affect others. Emotionally healthy people can consider others in their actions, and the narcissist cannot. While a narcissist can change, the first step is wanting to change, and that is often the roadblock to initiating change in the narcissist. As the emotionally healthy